The chimney incident. It was a cold December night in 2015, somewhere in central California. Inside, a homeowner tossed a few logs into the fireplace, watching the flames crawl and flicker up the brick walls. But hidden by the dark outside is a burglar creeping across the roof, clutching a crowbar and a plan that made sense only in his head. He was going down the chimney. He wedged himself in feet first, sliding past the soot-coated bricks, every inch tighter than the last. His shoulders scraped the sides, and soon, gravity took over. He dropped, jammed halfway down, ribs compressed, arms pinned. He tried to wiggle free, but the more he struggled, the deeper he sank. Then, the smell hit. Wood smoke rising through the flue. Below him, the homeowner had lit the fire. Guess Santa wasn't the only one coming down the chimney that night. Just this one forgot the suit, the gifts, and the part where you don't roast alive. Heat surged upward, and smoke filled the narrow shaft. The burglar's lungs screamed for air, but there was nowhere to go. He coughed, gagged, and screamed, his voice muffled behind the brick and crackle of fire. Neighbors saw smoke billowing thick and black, not from the chimney top, but from every seam in the roof. When firefighters arrived, they tore through the bricks with axes, expecting to find a clogged flue or nest. Instead, they found him, a man wedged, tight, lifeless, covered in soot, his body scorched and twisted by the heat. It took hours to pull him out, piece by piece, the smell of smoke mixing with something far worse. What started as a break-in ended in a cremation. He never even made it to the living room. His heist stopped cold by the fireplace he thought would warm his escape. The ATM incident. This next case took place at midnight in a quiet German town, the streets empty, the sky washed in fog, and the hum of distant traffic barely audible. For most people, it was another peaceful night, but for a small group of thieves, it was payday. Their target was a lonely cash machine sitting outside a closed supermarket. The plan was blow it open with homemade explosives and grab the money before anyone could respond. They moved with practiced confidence, one setting the charge, another keeping watch, and a third pacing nervously with a duffel bag ready to catch flying bills. The leader gave the nod as the fuse was lit. Sparks hissed, and they ducked behind a nearby wall, waiting for the perfect timed boom. Except the blast erupted sooner than expected. No countdown, no warning, just an instant, ear-splitting roar that ripped through the night. The ATM disintegrated with shards of metal turned into shrapnel, glass sprayed in every direction, and the nearest thief, the one holding the bag, was thrown backward into the pavement. When the smoke cleared, the scene looked like a war zone. The front of the building was scorched black, banknotes floated through the air like confetti, and alarms wailed from every direction. Two of the men stumbled away, dazed and half-deaf, but one didn't move. The blast had torn through his chest, leaving him sprawled beside the wreckage, surrounded by the money he'd tried to steal. By the time police arrived, there was nothing to do but document the mess of charred walls, melted circuits, and one would-be thief who'd miscalculated his way into the afterlife. The rooftop incident. On September 15, 2023, Los Angeles police surrounded an apartment building after reports of a home invasion. Inside were 4 suspects. 3 gave up immediately with hands raised, lying flat on the floor as officers shouted commands. But one man decided he wasn't going out that way. He bolted for the roof, climbing through a window and hauling himself up into the night air. From above, flashing lights painted the city in red and blue. Sirens echoed off the walls. Officers shouted for him to stop, but he kept moving, pacing across the rooftop like a trapped animal. Below, there was nowhere to run. Every exit sealed, every alley blocked. He looked down, saw a neighboring building, and made a choice that would seal his fate. He jumped. 60 feet of open air separated him from the street below. Witnesses later said it looked like he was trying to leap to the next roof. He didn't make it. Instead, he slammed onto a lower ledge, rolled, and then tumbled the rest of the way down. Bones shattered. The impact knocked the wind and nearly the life out of him. But somehow he survived. Staggering to his feet, blood pouring down his face, he reached into his jacket. Officers closed in, weapons raised, and then he pulled out a hammer and pointed it towards them. In the middle of it, under flashing lights and shouts, it looked like a gun. The police mistook it for a gun and fired shots. When the dust settled, he lay motionless, the hammer clutched in his hand. In the end, he'd outrun handcuffs, defied gravity, and even cheated death once, only to lose to his own terrible judgment. The swimming incident. In 2022, in Tempe, Arizona, police were responding to a domestic disturbance near Tempe Town Lake. As officers questioned a man by the edge of the lake, he realized things weren't going his way. There was talk of arrest, cuffs, consequences. So, in a split-second act of defiance, he did something no one expected. He jumped into the water. The officers shouted for him to stop, warning him the current was strong and swimming wasn't allowed. He didn't care. He pushed forward, kicking through the dark surface, drifting farther from shore with every stroke. Maybe he thought he could swim it out, cross to the other side, disappear into the night, and dodge a trip to jail. But Tempe Town Lake isn't built for escape. Beneath the still surface, the water's cold and unpredictable, filled with hidden undertows and sudden drops. Halfway across, the man began to panic. His breathing quickened, his strokes slowed, and then came the words that froze the air around him. "I'm drowning." From the bank, officers watched. They shouted for him to turn back, to grab onto something, but they didn't move. Department policy forbade them from entering the water. They called for a rescue boat instead. But boats take time. Drowning doesn't. His head dipped under once, twice, and then vanished. The ripples spread across the surface, and then there was only silence. When the rescue team finally arrived, it was too late. They pulled his body from the lake just a few hundred feet from where he'd jumped in. The police station incident. In late 2022, in Dearborn, Michigan, a man walked into a police station carrying a stolen handgun. Surveillance footage later showed him pacing outside first, muttering under his breath before suddenly pushing through the front doors. Inside, officers sat behind the reception desk mid-conversation when he entered with the weapon already raised. For a moment, no one moved. Visitors usually came in to file reports or ask for directions. Never like this. The man stepped closer, pointing the gun straight at one of the officers. Shouts rang out, commands to drop the weapon, but he didn't listen. He kept advancing, finger tightening on the trigger. Then came the click, a sharp, hollow sound. The gun jammed. Guess even his gun didn't want to commit to the plan after all. That single second of failure was all the officer needed. He drew his sidearm and fired, unleashing a controlled burst that filled the lobby with deafening echoes. Shell casing bounced off the tile floor as glass shattered around them. The suspect stumbled backward, struck multiple times before collapsing near the entrance. Officers rushed in, weapons still drawn, shouting for medical support, but the damage was too severe. The handgun was later recovered beside him, still jammed, slide locked halfway open. The interstate incident. Late one night in Colorado, flashing police lights cut through the dark as officers pulled over a sedan drifting across lanes. The driver had been going the wrong way down the road, headlights off, music blasting, completely oblivious to the chaos he was causing. When officers approached, they found him stumbling, slurring, and reeking of alcohol. As they tried to place him under arrest, he suddenly twisted free and bolted, staggering down the embankment and onto Interstate I-70. His shoes slapped against the asphalt, arms flailing as he tried to outrun the shouting officers behind him, but ahead of him, headlights were bearing down fast. The first car struck him square on. The impact folded his body over the hood like a rag doll, snapping bones and tearing through muscle in an instant. The windshield exploded into a spider web of cracks as he flipped into the air, tumbling end over end before crashing down on the pavement. Another car swerved but clipped his leg, sending him spinning again before he finally skidded to a stop along the median. The road fell silent except for the hiss of engines and the crunch of glass beneath slowing tires. Officers rushed forward, waving traffic down, but there was nothing left to save. His body was mangled, limbs bent the wrong way, chest crushed, blood spreading across the lanes in dark streaks under the glow of headlights. Paramedics arrived minutes later, but the damage was beyond repair. He'd been obliterated by the sheer speed and force of the highway. If you've made it this far, congrats. You just survived a crash course in the dumbest ways criminals have managed to take themselves out. That's all I've got for today. So maybe don't swim away from cops, don't pull a jammed gun in a police station, and definitely don't try your luck on the highway. And remember, crime doesn't pay if you're bad at it. Stay smart out there.